Okay, I hope we're connected. Looks like we are. Starting momentarily. Get rid of you. Oh. Okay. A few people checking in already. If you could, I'll try to get to your questions at the end. I see some questions up already. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. So I'm continuing to talk about the jhanas, and today I'm going to cover the topic of the Nivarana. These are the usually translated hindrances. These are the 5 defilements that obstruct the mind from settling and entering into jhana. As I said last time, the state of jhana should not be considered as something exotic or unnatural. It's a natural state of mind. And when the 5 hindrances are in abeyance, when they're not present, the mind naturally moves towards peace and joy and stability and deeper samadhi, and settles into jhana. One could almost say that the absence of the 5 hindrances is synonymous with jhana. It's the natural state of mind when the Nivarana are not present. The Nivarana should be considered as not as in the image of obstruction or a blockage in the path, but as a side path, a wandering, that the mind goes off the straight road and wanders down some byway and gets lost. They are factors of the mind that are peculiar to samsara, and particularly to the lowest level of consciousness in samsara, the sense desire realm. Jhana is in the rupa realm. It's a higher state of consciousness. Calling it a higher state is perhaps a slightly misleading image. You'd perhaps say a deeper or more primordial, a more natural state of mind, when the things that bind us to the lowest level of consciousness are removed. The mind naturally settles into this deeper state. The 5 Nivarana are kamachanda, sensual desire; vyapada, ill will; sloth and torpor, tinamida; restlessness and scruples, udacha kukucha; and skeptical doubt, vicikiccha. So let's look at these in turn. Kamachanda, the sensual desire, is pretty much a defining characteristic of the kamabhumi, the sense desire realm, the lowest level of consciousness. The mind is going out through the sense gates, looking for satisfaction or diversion, amusement, activity in the objects of the senses. And in terms of meditation, this can be very subtle. One can have a desire for more physical comfort, or desire for either warmer or cooler temperature, for example. or when the mind goes off into daydreaming, it's usually of some objects of the senses that the mind is imagining. And with this defilement in particular, you should be on your guard if you're trying to develop deep samadhi, trying to get into or experience jhana. Watch out for the mind that wanders into sensuality. This part of in the Satipatthana Sutta, one of the categories of Dhammanusati, contemplation of Dhammas, is contemplation of the five hindrances, which means to just be aware of the hindrance when it arises and don't allow it in, don't feed it, be on guard against it. If sensual desire becomes a real problem, then a good antidote is to do a meditation on the 32 parts of the body. Vyapada, ill will, is the opposite of sense desire, in that it's based not on attachment to the pleasant or desire for the pleasant, but to aversion or repulsion from the unpleasant. And again, this can be very subtle. Feelings of irritation. The room you're trying to meditate in is too hot, or it's too noisy, or there's a fly buzzing, and the mind can go to a state of ill will, of irritation. It's basically not wanting whatever is presented to consciousness, trying to push away from it. And if either of these two are present in the mind, they will divert the mind away from the straight path, and one cannot develop a deeper samadhi. Tinamida is sloth and torpor, is a dullness. The dullness of the mind, dullness which can take the form of laziness or boredom or sleepiness. And this is a very difficult hindrance to overcome once it's established itself. It just keeps, the tendency is for it to keep spiraling down into duller, more unaware states of mind until the meditator actually falls asleep, which you want to avoid. Dealing with Tinamida, the best advice is to pay attention to the posture and make sure you're sitting in such a way that your back is straight. It's not really critical how you arrange your legs. Lotus posture is something that very few Westerners can really manage comfortably. If you can, sadhu, you're good for you, but most of us can't. Sitting in whatever position is comfortable. Sitting in half or quarter lotus is very good. It's very stable, but even sitting in a chair is acceptable, provided you keep the back upright. That's the critical thing. My suggestion for meditating in a chair is that you get a straight back chair and put some kind of a cushion or a rolled up towel behind your lower back above the hips to support the lower back, but not the shoulders. That will help to maintain an upright posture. Other advice would be to meditate with eyes open, or get up and do some walking meditation. You really have to do something to break that cycle of letting the mind spiral into dullness. Uddhacca Kakucha, restlessness and anxiety. Some translators have, I think, come up with a clever translation for this to replicate the kind of rhyming of the Pali. I've seen it translated as worry and flurry. It's actually a pair of related states. Uddhacca is restlessness, and Kakucha is anxiety. Restlessness is it also occurs in the list of the 10 samyojana as one of the states that's only overcome by an arahant. So it's a very deep-rooted defilement. Restlessness is when you having difficulty either keeping the mind or the body still, or both. And the best advice when struck by uddhacca, restlessness, is to emphasize stillness, to sit still and try and keep the mind still. Restrain the body, restrain the mind, even if it's a bit of a struggle. It's important to remember that you'll never overcome restlessness by giving into it. The mind can come up to, when a person is trying to meditate, the mind can come up with 101 excuses and reasons of why you should be doing something else right now. Don't listen to that little voice. Just try and maintain stillness. A related state, kakucha, is a form of restlessness of the mind. It often takes the form of what we would call anxiety. That is playing out scenarios in the mind and being caught in storylines. What would happen if such and such occurs. It's an absolutely fruitless activity of the mind. It's absolutely no benefit to it whatsoever. And it just as you can't get rid of restlessness by giving into it, you can't get rid of anxiety by thinking your way out of it. You just have to make a strong effort and cut it off. The last of the 5 defilements is of the Nivaranas is vicikiccha, which has been translated as skeptical doubt, but an alternate translation you sometimes will see is uncertainty. I think in some ways that's a better translation, because doubt is a multivalent word really in English, and there are forms of what we call doubt that are spiritually wholesome. As the Zen people say, little doubt, little enlightenment, big doubt, big enlightenment. Now, what I mean by this is having an open mind, being open to new experiences, new ideas. This is very important for spiritual progress. If you have a closed mind and think you've got it all figured out, then you're blocking yourself from new discoveries. But the actual form of vicikiccha is a kind of wavering of the mind. It's a mind that doesn't have saddha or faith or certainty, confidence, but it craves that. It craves an answer. So instead of remaining open and waiting to see what the answer might be, it oscillates between answer A and answer B, back and forth. Maybe this is right, maybe that is right. And it is a real hindrance to practice. And it can come up in very subtle forms in meditation, having doubts arise in the mind about whether I'm doing it right is a particular form. That's not not conducive, not helpful to fall into that kind of speculating, but to continue on with your practice, and it'll sort itself out in time. And the way to clear up doubts is study and asking questions that try and clarify things. But that's in a kind of a general way. But in terms of the actual meditation practice, the best advice is just to surrender to the practice. Just do it. Don't get caught up in concerns about whether you're doing it correctly or incorrectly. Just carry on. And if your practice is not perfect, it'll still sort itself out in time. There are some similes that the Buddha uses for the five Nivarana that are evocative of the idea. Falling into sensual desire is compared to a man who is in debt. Once a person is in debt, they have a constant need to pay interest on the debt. They're constantly burdened with that debt. It's like this with sensual desire. You constantly need to be feeding sensual desire. It can never be satisfied. And if a man is then freed from debt, he goes on his way happy and feeling unburdened, just as one who is not who is released from sensual desire. People become very attached to their sensual desire. There's an analogy, another one that the Buddha gives for sensual desire, which is a very strong image, actually. He said to the monks, have you seen that leper who sits in the marketplace, covered in weeping sores? And he keeps beside him a little brazier of hot coals, and from time to time, with a pair of tongs, he pulls out a red-hot coal and presses it into one of his sores to cauterize it, and it gives him momentary relief. Do you think if that leper were miraculously healed tomorrow and could walk away clean and whole, that he would ever fall into nostalgia over his coals, his hot coals? And he likens that the leper to the ordinary person. The weeping sores are like the sense organs: eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, and so on. And the hot coals are the objects of sensual desire. So if you no longer have sensual desire, you would no longer have any nostalgia for the objects of sensual desire. Ill will, he compares to a disease. A man is suffering with some painful ailment. This is one of the characteristics of ill will, anger, hatred, all these forms, is that unlike sensual desire, it doesn't even feel good momentarily. There's no benefit whatsoever to it. We still get caught in it, and it actually has a harmful effect on the body. People with a lot of anger develop ulcers and stress-related conditions, heart conditions, and everything else. So ill will is compared to illness, and if a man was cured from his illness, he would be happy. He would be released from that burden. Sloth and torpor is compared to being in prison. You're locked up in a dark dungeon. This is the state of mind of one who is dull and falling into these dark, dull states of mind. It's like being imprisoned. You have no freedom of mobility. You have no light or freedom. And if you were released from prison, you would be very happy. Restlessness and anxiety is compared to being a slave. One who is a slave has no freedom to do as he chooses. He has to obey the orders of his master. So it is restlessness takes control of you. You just end up expending energy in various activities, or anxiety takes a hold of the mind. It becomes a master and pulls the mind around in circles. And if one is liberated from slavery, then one can walk away without any kind of hindrance. Finally, Wicikitcha is likened to traveling through a dangerous wild country, a desert or a jungle without a map. Sada, or faith, which is the opposite of Wicikitcha, the wholesome quality of sada, faith or confidence, is compared to a map, a guide to your progress through the spiritual life, just as a map is a guide to your progress through the physical world. I've also heard a somewhat more modern analogy for sada as like the headlights in a car that illuminate the way ahead. Another set of similes is based on water. The mind free from hindrance is like clear crystalline water, where you can see through the water and see what's in the bowl. Sensual pleasure is all of the defilements are like contaminations of the water. Sensual pleasure is like throwing colored dye into the water. It can make the water pretty, but it's obstructed. You can't see through it. Anger is like boiling water. When the water is heated and boiling, you can't see through it. It's churning up a constant stream of bubbles. Sloth and torpor is like a bowl of water covered by pond scum, weighed down and dark. You can feel like that when you're in sloth and torpor. You feel weighed down. Uddhacca Kucha is like water that's whipped up by the wind. It's agitated, so it's not clear for that reason. And uncertainty or doubt is like dirty or murky water. It's got a contaminant in it you can't see. Okay, so I think that's all I want to do for this activity, this talk, and I'll look at the chat. I'll start at there was a few questions here. They were kind of interesting questions that people put up even before the talk started. One of them is, what, if any, role do expectations and goals have in regard to meditation, and can they block progress? Yes, that can be a problem if your mind is too goal-oriented. It's better to think of these teachings on jhana or the 28 stages of insight, etc., as signposts rather than as goals. Don't try and set an agenda with your practice. Someone says they have an opportunity for a solo retreat. Assuming I can get into jhana, what dictates its duration? Likewise, must we be in lotus position? No, you don't need to be in lotus position. And as for duration, it for a long time it determines itself. You just won't have a great deal of control over it. It's a particular higher level of mastery if you can determine in advance the duration of the jhana. What other meditation position would you recommend? Um, the best position is sitting. It doesn't have to be in lotus posture, as I said, and even sitting in a chair, as long as you keep the back upright. How can we prevent others from assuming we are dead? I don't think you have to worry about that. The Visuddhimagga and other texts, they talk about someone in Nirodha Sampati. It's very difficult to tell whether they're dead or alive, but that's a very advanced state that's really only available to Anagami or an Arahant. What is your take on the... I can't read this small font. Here we go. What is your take on the harder Visuddhimagga jhanas versus some of the soft jhanas? Can you not really hear or feel anything in any real jhana? It's all a matter of degrees. You do become more and more secluded from the sense objects the deeper you get into jhana. It is still, in first jhana particularly, it's still, you're somewhat secluded from the sense objects, but it still can be a problem. There's a saying that, I think it's from the Visuddhimagga, I can't remember, but there's a saying that sound is a thorn to first jhana. Because it brings you back, a loud or sharp sound, a disturbing sound, can bring you back into the world of the senses, and you'll lose the jhana. As you get deeper, second, third jhana, that becomes less and less of a problem. When you enter jhana without a nimitta, how do you know you are in one? And when in jhana, are you supposed to turn your attention into what your mind wants, go back and forth between piti and the breath? How do you know you're in jhana? Well, if you feel the mind's completely at ease and at peace, and there's no distraction from wandering thoughts or external sense objects, that's a sign. It's again, I said, it's a matter of degrees. It's all a spectrum of deeper and deeper samadhi. Should you go back and forth between piti on the breath? Yeah, there are different takes on this. My own feeling is that you should still maintain your focus on the breath, but feel the piti in running through it. Feel the piti is at this. Don't ignore the piti, but don't take it as the object either. What realm would you say AI exists in? It seems like an empty echo of some sort of thought, shaped by it, reflecting but not caught in it. I don't think AI is conscious or sentient in any way. It's a mechanical operation of an algorithm. So it's purely within the rupa kanda, the realm of form, material objects. I don't know if it ever will attain consciousness. I don't know if that's possible. Sometimes after seeing a light nimitta, the eyes automatically open or blink. Do you have any advice to mitigate this, or why does it happen? If you just try and stay present with being aware of what of the nimitta without reacting to it. If your eyes are opening or blinking, you're probably having too strong of a mental reaction to the nimitta. You're not just peacefully being with it. I don't think I want to deal with that today. found that a useful technique for dealing with anxiety is shifting one's focus to awareness of the body, e.g. the sensation of sitting. Mahasinoin is also useful. Yes, yeah, being grounded, paying attention to the body is a way of getting out of the, mental proliferation generally. After emerging from jhanas, do you, for example, get insights on certain topics such as anatta or anicca? Yeah, this can definitely happen. One of the, I think I want to probably talk about levels of consciousness next week, but one of the benefits of jhana is that having been immersed for a while in the higher state of consciousness, then when you emerge from that, you have a better understanding of the lower state of consciousness, and you can see through the characteristics. Would you consider ordaining novices at our river? I did that once. I don't really want to make a habit of it. It's actually quite burdensome. I'm glad you've returned. How was your retreat? Yes, it was very good. Thank you. Can you give your opinion on fixed point gazing meditation using yantras? Yeah, that's another vehicle, an entry point. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways of getting unity of mind, and the breath is not the only one. You can use mantras or yantras. We're not real big on that in our tradition, but I'm not against it. I think it could work. I heard Ajahn Punnadhammo had heart issues because of his fear of ghosts while practicing at charnel grounds. How is this possible? Yeah, that kind of a practice is dangerous, and it can lead to problems. Meditating on corpses, it's not. It's strong medicine. Is there a way to go from first jhana to second, or does that something happen naturally since you were supposed to let go fully and let the mind take control? Yeah, I think it's more a natural progression. The mind moves. The mind has a tendency to, when it's going in the right way, when you're settled and developing samadhi, the mind has a tendency to move always from the coarse to the subtle. Those are relative terms. So what seems subtle at one level can begin to seem coarse at the next level. For example, the quality of piti can seem subtle and delightful at first, but then it begins to seem heavy and kind of gross to the mind, and the mind naturally diminishes it and moves into sukha as the transition to third jhana. Next question, follow up from the one about charnel ground. I asked because I might go back to the ghost forest for solo retreat. The last time it was scary. May I ask for your guidance on this issue before I embark? Yeah, I would advise first examining the area in daylight, and mark in your mind, there's a tree here, there's a stump there, there's a rock there. So if you're in the dark, you don't start your mind doesn't start running away and having false perceptions. Also, be careful. Don't take on more than you can handle. Bhante, when only one Buddha can appear on earth in a world system at a time, does this mean the Buddha on the earth or one Buddha in the entire universe? There are different opinions on that. Um, and I think historically the tendency has always been to make the Buddha more and more unique. So that at first the idea was that there can only be one Buddha in the world at a time, and this was extended to, by the commentaries, it was extended to a 10,000 world system area. There can only be one Buddha at a time in 10,000 worlds. And there was a later idea that came in that there can only be one Buddha in the entire universe. But if we go back, the original conception was that there can only be one Buddha in the world system at a time. The Buddha is unique in that way. Do you recommend doing kasina meditation to enter jhana, and what's the real risk? I don't think there's any particular risk associated with kasina meditation if you use the recommended kasinas from the Visuddhimagga, that is the colored kasinas or the elementary kasinas. I think they're quite safe. It works very well for some people. You have to have a strong ability to visualize if it's going to work for you. You can try it and find out if it seems to be only a minority of people that really have the facility to properly do kasina meditation. I apologize for changing the topic. You said you want to know more about Ahsoka being 25% Greek. It's from Wikipedia. Okay, I'll have to look into that. Does the strength of piti reduce over time the more and more you do it? Sometimes I feel less piti every time it comes up. Is that normal? It is normal. If the mind, I would say, if the mind is still maintaining good samadhi and the piti is declining, you should be replacing it with sukha. You should feel more peace and ease and joyfulness in the mind. But the piti transforms and becomes subtilized. How is Sila able to knock out the 5 hindrances? That's really one of the main purposes for practicing Sila, is to diminish the tendency of the mind to go to those places by restraining the externalities. It works on the principle of faking it till you make it. The practice of restraint naturally diminishes the desire. Okay, so I think we'll leave that there, and I'm going to continue next week, and I think I'm going to focus on more technical idea of jhana as a higher state of consciousness, or I prefer to say maybe a deeper state of consciousness, a transition, a level transition, and what that means, and why it's useful and important.